Hello, hello, people. Can you guys hear me? I hope so, yeah. Owen, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Excellent, okay. It's a whisper. I am a whisper. Awesome. That's a first. A bit quiet. Okay, fine. I'll raise my stuff up.
How am I sounding?
Yeah, how's Owen sounding, folks? He's the main one. I don't matter. Keyboard is, yeah, well, Owen is too loud. Go figure. That's funny. Okay, so hold on, let me turn you down. What about me? Like I said, I'm not gonna be the one talking, so whatever. Alright, just start this up. So just a heads up, people, you can come gather at the Prevalia Bank, and there will be a giveaway. Afterwards, and there's one right now in chat. Can't hear me. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. My mic. Okay, let's get gain up. How about now, folks? Okay, so better now? Alright, cool.
How about me? How's it sounding?
You sound awful. Alright, well, if you want to get going.
All right, so hi, it's X1I today. This is our almost 1-year online developer debrief for Outlands. We launched almost a year ago, which is pretty wild to think about everything that we've done and everything that we've accomplished and how quickly the year went. First of all, I think the Outlands team feels like we've had a year's worth of work for sure, but we are pretty excited about hitting the 1-year mark, first of all, which is a milestone that many shards don't hit at all, and also really excited about the future and everything else that we have coming down the pipeline. So I just want to touch briefly on the year, review what we did in sort of big chunks, then we'll jump right into the developer pipeline and the PvP and guild patch, and then we'll take care of this raffle and we'll let you go on your way. So I'm going to keep it kind of cheap and cheerful, and then we'll let you go. So we launched last October, obviously. Things were pretty wild. I'll never forget launch day. That was a crazy experience. We crashed the patch server and we overloaded the game server, and we very quickly hit 1,000 players, which was a huge milestone for us. We kind of thought that we would never even hit 500, let alone hit 1,000. And then on December 2nd, we hit 2,000 players, which was mind-blowing. Never really expected to have that kind of a population on Outlands. I didn't think that population really existed for UO shards anymore, so that was a huge sort of mind-blowing experience for us in general. Then we went into launching some major content. We opened Cavernum Dungeon, which was our 9th dungeon, in January of this year. And by all accounts, I think it was the largest UO single server event that ever happened. The whole event was a mess. We learned a lot. I think we crashed 4 times and changed the rules on players. And back then, aspect gear was lost forever, basically. So we had a lot of people who were upset with us, and that spurred on the whole change for the aspect system. But I think our final count was something like 455 people.
No, it's 480 something. Is what it was.
Yeah, 480 players in Cavernum during the Cavernum launch, which was a pretty massive event by any stretch. I mean, it was a total shit show, but it was fun. And I don't think many people had ever seen that many players on one screen, let alone, charging through the dungeon and seeing something completely new. Yeah, it's giving me anxiety just watching this video.
Yeah, right. It is. That's I'm looking at it right now.
We've been talking a lot with Eric Gray, our new seer, about putting on events, and he's like, I just want to do something small. I won't really announce it, and that's just really not possible in Outlands. There's no way for us to do something small, because the second people get wind of something happening, they're going to show up, and they want a reward, and they want their time to be valued and recognized, and they want a handout, essentially. And it's really difficult to do anything small. And I just want to, casual conversation in a pub, and then maybe, we'll head from point A to point B. Okay, we can try this. Good luck. But looking at this footage, I don't know.
Yeah, that was a lot.
If any of that is possible. That was an experience for sure. Cavernum's proved to be one of our more popular dungeons now, I think, because it's difficult. I know people are really craving difficult content, and one thing that we are actively working on is making our content more challenging. So we want people to be out hunting in groups and utilizing their high aspect gear and working towards their mastery chains so that they can progress in the game naturally and have something, to strive for. So Cavernum is definitely the most challenging dungeon. I know some people don't like it because it's white and hard on the eyes.
Imagine what it used to be before, though.
Yeah, it was a lot whiter before I added in the gray and the different hues. It was very monochrome. But I'm just gonna let this video play for a second.
I think I inserted the part where we all die too. I think I edited that part into this. I think it should be coming up right now. Unfortunately,
that was a hairy day.
God, man,
for sure.
Yeah. I was just looking at it. That was one of the laggiest That was incredible, though. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, there were definitely things that we could have done for stability and for the rule changes, like tamer pets and notoriety and everything else that was in place.
Oh, there it is, right there.
I don't think there's anything that we could have done to change the server performance, because there were
Look how many
400
people.
on
Look
a
at all
stream
those.
at any
Look
given time.
look at all those corpses and
Look at all those dead people. That was anyway, that was a day.
Yep. Moving on.
Yeah, moving right along. We've hosted a few PvP tournaments throughout the year. We've recently changed the rules so that they're order only, and we've seen tank mages turning out to compete on a more level playing field instead of having more variety in the tournaments. That was kind of an experiment to see. We know that there's a lot of sort of tank mage content on Outlands. That's definitely the go-to template for this era of gameplay, and we wanted to introduce that into tournaments, and we went fully into that and completely changed it so that all tournaments were sort of tank mage only. And we've seen, a group of players joining in and playing, but I don't know necessarily how inclusive that is. So ideally we have our tank mage tournaments happening in addition to other tournaments so that more people can begin to take part. And we'll see how that goes, for better or worse, opening the doors to more players. But there is a 2v2 tournament tonight, as usual, at 10 p.m. That follows the order rule set. And then we will be hosting another official cash prize tournament to celebrate our 1-year anniversary, which will be a large cash prize. So we'll announce that date as soon as it's available.
Make sure to sign up at the Arena Stone for tonight's tournament, though, beforehand.
And signups are available now, so you can hop into the arena and do that there. And then we can move on from PvP tournaments, because I think that's kind of standard content now. One big thing that Outlands introduced was the boss summoning system, which now seems like a lifetime ago in terms of functionality. But we gave players the ability through their guild to summon bosses, and that put the control back into players' hands, which was something that people were craving. And I know that people are still craving that for the mini boss system, which we are working to address. We have a lot of ideas for how to handle the boss system, which I'm not really going to tease because I can, talk into my ass till I'm blue in the face. But I think that there are definitely things that we can do to improve the boss system in general. One thing that I'm seeing right now is that people are just, slaying bosses in minutes, and that's not really challenging for anybody.
Wow.
That's sirens going by.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I see that. I hear that. Holy crap.
Bunch of fire trucks. So we'll release that information when we have it more finalized. I would like to see bosses be more challenging. I cringe every time I watch bosses go down in minutes. I think that they could be made more difficult for sure, but I don't know exactly how to approach that. I also think that bosses are a really great opportunity for conflict and player interaction, and I know that I'm often accused of being sort of bloodlusty, but I think that players who are playing on a Feluca-based PvP shard definitely look for that interaction, and bosses have always been that point of interaction. So there might be something that we could do in terms of giving people or players the opportunity to tackle bosses without being rated, but also maybe open them up to be, fully rated or announced. So those are the directions that we're thinking of going. The simplest way of implementing this would be just to let people summon mini bosses at 50% of the total gold value in their guild quota page. And, that would be easy, but I don't know if that's necessarily engaging, and it still gateways it behind guilds. So if we were to make that into an item system where, say, you collected 100 items, then you could summon a mini boss, that would at least give players who aren't guilded the opportunity to sell something to players who are in a guild and want to summon a boss, or to a group that wants to summon a boss. So there are different ways that we're looking at approaching that. It's a big system, and it's something that we don't want to rush into and make major changes, because people have kind of mastered the way that it's working right now, and it will be touchy depending on how we work things moving forward. So bosses are ongoing. I'm not a huge fan of the lore note system the way it sits. I know that trading those pages and organizing them is a real challenge for people, and they're frustrated with the amount of mess that they have. And We've looked at doing a lore note tomb, which is something that Luthien is trying to wrap his head around, how to handle all that data in one place. But that won't necessarily come to fruition for a while. I also think that the omniboss isn't as lucrative as it should be. The rewards aren't great enough. And also, lore bosses are too easy. And doing those lore pages the lore notes is time consuming, but it's not necessarily difficult. And perhaps they're dropping too frequently. So I want to revisit that system and see how we can optimize that and make it more fun and make it more engaging and really reward people who are tackling the omniboss, because I think that's sort of wasted content right now due to the lack of rewards and the time that it takes and the raid risk potential there. Anyway, bosses is ongoing, but that was a big shift that we made in sort of Outlands history in putting the power into players' hands so that they could work towards some bosses. And then in August, we hosted the King's Fair, which was one of the coolest things I've ever seen in UO. We were all we were pretty joyful about the whole thing. In staff, I built this map. I basically forced Luthien to make all of these games. He's like, let's do 5. And I'm like, how about we do 10? And there were arcade games that were open to everybody. There was no skill required, which was a response to our player base saying that everything is, you need to do this, have that, whatever, the requirements were too deep. So this was a really open-ended event for everybody to take part in. And some of the games were completely random and others were based on how often you played. And all in all, the King's Fair was a huge success. We had thousands of players playing it. We had tons of gold sunk, which is a huge thing for the economy, and players were rewarded with prizes.
Had some fun events too.
Yeah, we had some fun events. The closing was definitely fun. It's setting up for another event in the future. The Queen has been cursed, so players will have to figure out what's going on there. That will all unravel in the future.
Yeah, it's coming up with the help of also Eric as well.
Yeah, so the opening ceremonies were really widely attended and the closing ceremonies were widely attended. We broke the week into 2 weeks, so there was 2 opportunities for prizes, and then we had a free day where everybody could take part if they hadn't had a chance or hadn't found a ticket. And the tickets dropped on mobs, or you could buy them right at the fair, and it was just kind of a, whimsical sort of Renfest in UO. It was really fun to watch people engage with that content. It was busy almost the entire time. There was competitions and people were betting on things, and there was, friendly rivalries that were happening. People were racing to the top of the scoreboards on the archery contest and on the jousting, and the drinking contest was particularly controversial, and the high striker, and I think it brought the Shard together, and it brought the Shard apart in different ways. But the King's Fair was something that I'm proud that we pulled off and that we executed, and that it was enjoyed by a lot of people, and it was something that a lot of people had never seen in Ultima Online before. And then, what did we do? Expo's been putting out Shard Happens videos, which I get a kick out of. I think that it's fun for players to see the behind the scenes. I need to start recording some of the interactions that I deal with on a daily basis. I recently teleported to a player who had returned after being away for 6 months, and he had a trash barrel in front of him in his house that was outside of Osphora. He's like, this garbage is on all of my characters. And he proceeded to trash all of his 6-month anniversary collectible cards in front of me. Like, this is on everybody. Like, what is this garbage? And I was just like, it was the weirdest page. Like, you should maybe hold on to those. Like, they could have some value in the future. Like, maybe there will be some kind of an exchange system where you can, you need 5 cards to make a poster. And anyway, I need to start recording some of the shit that I deal with.
Yes, please.
Or, my private messages are always a barrel of laughs every day. We definitely need to do like a shit happens.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. I just didn't want to put that in big letters. Shit happens.
Yeah, shit happens. I think there's a difference between Shard Happens and shit happens, but I know that people really like to watch those videos. I think that they're pretty fun. I think they've caught some really great moments and captured the Shard's narrative, and it's a good way to show just how busy Outlands is all the time. And my dog was going to bark for a second. As usual, I can't go through a single... Yep, there she goes. Can't go through a single podcast without a yappy dog. I'm just going to take a 2-second break here. 1 second.
No problem. This is at least going. I'm at least running around showing some of the new houses while that goes. Yeah, Shard Happens is probably one of my favorite series, if not my favorite video series. I really like the community one. The community one was that was fun. I didn't realize we had so many streamers, which is pretty fantastic thing. Higgsgiving. It's whenever the turkey comes running out. I wonder if Hig will have a Higgsgiving coming up. It's already going to be next month. Wow, jeez.
I think Hig should do a Higgsgiving on Canadian Thanksgiving.
On Canadian? When's that?
It's in October.
Oh, okay.
The third Monday in October. I did the Inside Outlands podcast 2 days ago. I joined Nat Ryle and Ace Mason and Jack Churchill. And I said the same thing, like, I don't think I can get through this podcast without my dog barking. She gets really stoked about me talking out loud and starts to yap. Anyway, she's settled down. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to that Inside Outlands podcast, I'd really recommend it. I think it's amazing that we have a community-based podcast. That's something that I'm really proud of, that, you know, people care enough about Outlands to put that time and energy into making content. And I've joined them a few times. I talked to Nate one-on-one. He originally had me on his Sandbox podcast, their MMO podcast from his gaming group before Outlands launched, and that was really exciting then, even to, you know, imagine that there was enough buzz about a project to have me on their show, you know, and list Outlands among other major MMO titles. And anyway, I joined him again on Inside Outlands, and I popped in one podcast, crashed the party, and then I joined them again 2 nights ago. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to the podcast, I'd really recommend it. They've interviewed some great people, and that's been a really wonderful community addition. So you can find that. We link them in chat often, so check that out. And then we can move on to the PvP and guild patch, which I'm just going to come out and say it that this took way longer than we had ever anticipated. We started teasing this content in January, and it wasn't released until September. And that there were a lot of things that were part and parcel with that patch that probably could have been broken up and released into smaller patches. I think the main thing was the pet rebalance, which we swung really far one direction. I think we've landed in a good place now. We're still looking to tweak those pets, and especially pets that are underutilized or no one's using, to make them more beneficial. There are a lot of really great pets, and Luthien spent a lot of time in the pet system, and to see them not be used at all is you know, a tragedy is a dramatic word, but it's, you know, it's too bad that more pets aren't being used. So that's going to be the constant look. You know, we're going to keep taking a look at pets. I don't foresee any other major shifts in pets compared to where they are now, or, you know, buffs. I think that in general, I think that pets are in a good place. But that is a change that should have happened before we launched. And that's one of my biggest regrets with Outlands, is that we didn't change pets sooner. But we can only look forward, and that patch came out all together, and there were a ton of changes in that. It's like 5 pages of patch notes. And we made a trailer so it's more easily digestible. And I just sent out a mailer. The patch went in a month ago, and it was definitely, you know, there were some flaws, and there still are some flaws with it that we're working through. Castle sieges are still a bit iffy in terms of, you know, who wins, and the team being stuck inside the castle gates and then, being killed like fish in a barrel. So that's an ongoing work in progress. The developers are working on that, as carefully and quickly as they can to make sure that all gets sorted out. But the whole basis of the patch is that players will now find PvP events every hour on the hour, every day. And Outlands launched without PvP content in general, which definitely encouraged people to raid and PK and, generally grief because they didn't really have much else to do. So I am aware of that. I was aware of that and really made a push to make engagement events happen on a regular basis. So for the PvP players who had joined us early and felt there wasn't enough PvP content, I definitely recommend that you log back in and check out the PvP content that we have going now. It's definitely widely contested, and the people who are taking part in it are telling me that they're finding PvP at all hours. We had a really short season. That's one thing that we've introduced with this patch as well, is seasonal record boards, which are showing just how...
Sorry, I was... Sorry for the interruption. Apparently the video was too loud. I forgot to mute that.
Okay. The seasonal leaderboards are something that are pretty exciting, and people are really jumping into that to get to the top. And it's also showing, activity, and it's helping staff crack down on resource gatherers. And now PvP events are also ranked. So we had a short season, the initial first season, and I think that one guild came out pretty high on top for taking part in so many events. And now we've moved into the second season, which is 3 months long. And that's how they will work from now on, sort of quarterly season. So the update included global warfare, which is still a bit buggy, but now that menu is up. That's kind of like a show score. If you kill an orange, you take their points. If they kill you, they take yours. And those rankings will be displayed. So you can see exactly how you factor into the grand scheme of things in terms of orange versus orange warfare. Castle siege system, which involves breaking down a door and capturing the castle and keeping it claimed as yours, and then receiving your reward for doing so. I think that we're going to look at the benefits of castle sieging, because right now you get a reward and you get prestige and whatever, but I think that we could make that feel a little bit more immersive. Right now it's a bit of a stale PvP event where you just take part and there's no then what. There needs to be a bit more engagement there.
If only there were NPCs or upgrades.
Like the original implementation. Anyway, we are looking at ways that we can make that system more rewarding or engaging without interfering too much into the PvP. And then we added blood feuds, which I don't think anyone's done. The Corpse Creek Warbell, which I don't think anyone has rung. That is a way for players to notify other players that they are seeking action. It's kind of like I seek my enemies, or I'm ready for war, whatever it might be. So that is located in northern Corpse Creek. You can go there and ring the bell, and it will notify everyone who's flagged that you are there and ready to fight. Basically, the feedback that I'm getting is because the PvP events happen every hour on the hour, no one really has time to ring the bell. Everyone has the action that they want, and the action that they get at the start of the hour extends through to the next event. So it's really constant if you're looking for it. And also, dungeon flashpoints now have a chest. So if you'd like to go and contest the dungeon flashpoints, you're welcome to. That is another lucrative way to PvP and play the game. And that we're looking at tweaks to that too. I think one way to differentiate would be to leave the monsters alive. I think that's sort of widely requested now, is that so many of the events are similar, but the flashpoints are an opportunity to incorporate NPCs in a more immersive, sort of realistic way. Why would they die in the dungeon? They should stay alive, and then you can kill them or utilize them in the dungeon in your PvP scenario, whatever you want. So let me see if I missed. Corpse Creek was redesigned. That I have one more map tweak coming out. I've been talking with one guild who's disappointed with the way things worked out. I have received more positive feedback than negative feedback on that whole change. Corpse Creek was a beautiful map area that we chose to be our lawless area, like Buck's Den. It was shortly before we launched, and that was a misinformed decision on my part because mechanically it was non-functional. There were line of sight errors all over the place and hills and large elevation changes, and it just didn't work for its purpose. So I redesigned Corpse Creek and unfortunately had to make changes to it to accommodate those changes, which moved the town a little bit further west, and some players were upset about where that ended up. So there'll be one more shift that will move the bank a little bit closer to where it was. And then also I removed the gap in the mountains to the east of the Corpse Creek contest pad, main circle, because players would just off screen out of that gap in the mountains, and then the PvP wouldn't count for anything. So it was like they were almost dodging the purpose of the event. So I'm going to put that gap back, but there will be a wall that will go up during Corpse Creek content. So if that's where your house is and you want easy access to Corpse Creek, or you place it there so you can have access to the bank easily, then you will all the time, other than those, few half-hour times when the Corpse Creek content is online. So that's incoming. That map patch will also include a few other changes, some more tweaks to Ossuary 4, which is continually in the works, and the Rangelands map, and also the Halloween event map. Finishing off the PvP patch, we added the guild treasury so guilds can keep track of their finances. Also in that patch was corrupted shrine revisions, which now put angst to bags after every wave, which we thought was a reasonable compromise, considering that before they would just end up on the corpse and raiding guilds would take everything, and what was a PvM event became a very much PvP event, and the PvMers didn't really do it anymore. So we changed that, and also they're now happening twice a day. So there's an opportunity for shrines to happen twice a day, once in the morning randomly between midnight and noon, and another from noon to midnight. So everybody globally has a chance reasonably to hit a shrine. So keep an eye out for that content. It's also now announced in chat. We have a Discord bot that's partially functioning, and it announces every shrine that corrupts in the live feed channel. So you can keep an eye on Discord so you don't miss a thing. And poker's always, I say always, since its inception has been under renovation. We reintroduced it last night, but players were raging about the rake. I don't play poker. I think it's ridiculous that we're catering to players who play poker in Ultima Online. And we've also, to be brutally honest, found that the players who are giving us feedback on poker are really not very friendly. And it's been frustrating for us to receive feedback from people who are just sort of, outright assholes, the way that poker's developing. We were pretty proud of it. It's a completely custom system built from the ground up that doesn't have the bugs that are associated with all of the other poker systems on the majority of shards. We also have custom artwork that was designed by Belial, UO-themed cards, and a board, which look pretty amazing. It would be a shame to abandon that, but I would like to just caution the community that if you're providing us with feedback, to do it in a, at least a semi-courteous way, instead of telling us, things are fucked, for lack of, better terms. So if you have feedback on poker or you have ideas, you can, send us messages and we'll receive them. I'll probably forward you to Luthien because I don't know anything about poker and I really don't care to learn, especially after I've seen and heard the feedback we've received on poker. that's all Expo has to say.
Yeah. No,
yeah. So now we can jump into the pipeline. I'm just going to breeze through this because if you listen to the Inside Outlands podcast, you will have heard a lot of the discussion surrounding this already. But we have some really amazing things that are coming down the pipeline, not to be punny, but that is what we've called it, the dev pipeline. So the first major system that we have coming out is Antiquities. That will be a actual physical document that you will go and purchase from an NPC called a Antiquities Manifest. And it's basically a way to encourage players to get out into the world, into various systems, including PvP events, dungeon lore, treasure chests, shrine corruption, omni bosses, and the Stygian Rift system, crafting, slaying monsters, and also ocean content. These rare items will drop at extreme rarity, and once you find them, you check them into your manifest and you work to complete your manifest. There will be achievements related to gathering all of the items. Once you have the items, you can then display them in your house or trade them or whatever it might be, but they're basically glorified deco items that have a purpose in a broader system. And we're tying antiquities into the opening of Ossuary 4. And I think I've talked about Ossuary 4 in the last 3 dev debriefs, probably. It's, widely anticipated content that is actually in the works. I know I've talked about it for a long time, but Luthieus is actively working on Ossuary 4 now, and there will be an event that triggers the opening of Ossuary 4, which is tied to the antiquity system. So this push will kind of all come together. Ossuary 4 is a dungeon that we're excited about. It's going to be difficult group-based content. I think there's a lack of that on Outlands. We want to make it a challenge, and it is hopefully going to be that way. It's large, first of all. It's difficult. It's going to be full of traps. There's a lot of monsters that will require groups to work on. I'm pushing for, high HP, but not super annoying. So things like, stuns and traps and freezes and things that aren't fun to play against will be removed from that experience in favor for monsters that are just really difficult. There's a few, signature one-time pathways and traps, and it will be a unique and immersive experience, which we hope the players enjoy. I think Expo is running through it there on the stream, so you can see just the scope and scale of the dungeon and why it's taken so long to build, and also why it's taken so long to flesh out. Also, the PvP patch took up a lot of the time that we had teased Ossuary 4 for, so we're now just getting a chance to tackle that and release it as we imagined it. But there'll be new tamables as well, maybe some 5-slot tamables, high-end pets for people to go after. There's a screenshot teased on the dev pipeline, so you can see some of those pets there. You'll see some blue ones in that screenshot as well. Those are additional mobs that Luthieus is making for the Palma 3 expansion, which I just threw some existing monsters into. But we will have new monsters and potentially new pets for Palma 3 as well. So more for our hunters and our tamers to look forward to. The next big system, which is my favorite system, is mount breeding. Mount breeding is the only thing that we talked about before launch that we haven't brought to fruition. Kind of like the unanswered promise of Outlands development. And it's an idea that I came up with and I forced down Luthieus' throat, and he hasn't had a chance to work on it until recently, and now it's 95% complete. So mounts spawn in the world in their lightest hue, and the goal of the mount breeding system is to breed your mounts down to the darkest and potentially rare hues. So there's a bunch of different colors to choose from, and breeding darker mounts together will ultimately lead to dark mounts and then potentially a rare hue. So you'll also find that once the system is implemented, that existing mounts have genders assigned to them, male and female, and you obviously require a male and a female to breed a mount together. And then also they have a fertility range. The fertility decreases as mounts are bred together. So if you have rare hues, you can't just endlessly breed rare hues together in hopes of getting more rare hued mounts. So there isn't an endless supply of rare hued mounts that will enter into the world. And most likely players will need to have animal taming, animal lore, and potentially veterinary skill to breed mounts and make this all happen. So we'll finally start to see some darker mounts come into play instead of the light hues that are spawning in the wild. I'm excited about that system. We also have house pets that are coming in. We have small models of everything, like small ostriches and small horses and small cows that players will be able to have in their house if they want a house pet. Someone asked me for a ferret. I thought maybe we could do ferrets, or I like the idea of familiars, just having like a little, furry thing that bounds behind you and you can have it with you all the time and it's good for nothing, but just like a small companion that follows you around. We'll see if we get that far. Then, Stygian Rifts is a system that we teased a while ago. We're still working out exactly how this is going to work. It's a system that we're borrowing from Albion Online, their successful Hellgate system, which is arguably the most successful part of that game. It's not something that natively ports into Ultima Online, and we still have to determine how the gates are going to open, exactly what the reward will be, and what that contest will look like. But the general basis of it is that it will be set small teams that are competing against each other in a PVM and a PvP encounter. So you'll queue in or enter into the Stygian Rifts, and you'll fight bosses and then fight each other, and the winning team gets their reward. So the complications with that are kind of endless, and we're working through exactly how to implement that in a way that's suitable to UO and also in a way that's suitable to Outlands. But I know that we have a lot of content that's very large group driven, and there aren't always large groups, or there aren't always players who have people to team up with, and this will be an opportunity for small groups of 2v2, 3v3, 4v4, 5v5 to face off against each other on a more even playing field. And even though it's instanced, we don't feel that this will take away too much from the general economy or the ecology of the world, because it's small group and it's quite short. So, and also not very frequent. That's another thing, is that these aren't going to be happening all the time. It's not something that you can queue into all the time. Maybe 2 or 4 times a day at max, these events will happen. So we have to work out how you'll queue in and then the results. And I think it's important that we have a ranking system in place so that we can see who the top teams are. And if you're fighting against the top team, or you're fighting against top tier players and you do win them, that you're adequately rewarded. So some kind of ELO ranking system will be in place with the Stygian Rift system. There's 2 arenas, both are on the map already. This was done a while ago. One looks kind of like a Stygian prison, Stygian penal colony, very space themed, which is distant in Ultima lore, but it still exists. And then a lava arena, which looks a bit more like the Hellgates arenas from Albion Online. So moving on to the next chunk is new player houses, which again, I have to apologize for how long this has taken. It's much easier for me to build a house on my end than it is to implement it into the game. We have to make the house code and then also add it to all of the systems and value and the wiki and everything else. And I built 27 of them. That is just taking a bit longer than I had hoped. When I initially teased them a while ago, I had built 1 or 2 and I shared them in chat, and immediately, people started to bombard me because they like the design and they're looking to upgrade their houses, or they want to drop their smalls and place a bigger house finally because they can afford it, or new guilds that are looking to place their first guild house or waiting for bigger houses. The layouts are simpler. I haven't added any small rooms. I'm keeping things in mind, like where you want to put your vendors or room to display or roofs and things that after a year of watching how players play and what they're looking for, have catered these houses towards, I think, what people want. So I'm working directly with Forespire on this house toolkit to get those online sooner than later. I don't want to put an ETA on it because I already feel bad for how long it's taken. So I'm going to try my best to get this rolling. This is kind of an aside, but I broke my hand 8 weeks ago, and using the mouse has been a challenge. So I haven't really been able to map and build houses or do strenuous tasks like tons of clicking or spreadsheet work or anything. And now, just a few days ago, I took off my cast. So I'm kind of rehabbing my hand, and it's my right hand, my mouse hand, and all the work that I do on the shard involves a lot of clicking and detail work and, you know, precision in terms of mapping. And I need to be a bit gentle with my hand while it's healing. So please forgive the delay in that regard.
I hear you on that. Taking its toll.
Yeah, it's a lot of... wasn't carpal tunnel, actually. I had a broken bone in my wrist that then affected my tendon. Anyway, that's the sob story. But that's part of the reason why these things are taking a bit longer than I had hoped. Before I took my vacation in August, I had broken my hand. So anyway, ship content is the next big thing. My favorite ship people are a wonderful group of players that really keep to themselves and have put up with a lot of nonsense on our end in terms of delays and not a lot of attention compared to other content that we release. But you're going to see a major patch from focusing on a variety of things with ocean content coming in the future. A lot of our players had a chance to test the ocean bosses that we have nearly finished. They're really close to being released, 95% complete. And there's sort of a main boss and a mini boss. One's the Insatiable Maw and the other's Ocean's Fury. And they will be spawning at random on the seas for our sailors' tackle. And then we have some other overhauls to fishing maps, fishing nets, messages in a bottle, fishing spots. And that will change the loot as well as mechanical upgrades to make that more lucrative and also more enjoyable, because they're kind of non-issues right now, and that's a shame because I think that's engaging content that people who like the sea content or like fishing will want to engage with. Also, finally have aquariums that will be ready to go. That system's been finished for a while but just hasn't been implemented. So soon we will have the fish content, or sorry, the aquariums available as part of this ship content patch too. Yeah, there's the meme, ship people. Yeah, that's me talking about ship people. Also, some changes to ship upgrades, including ship abilities and ship themes. So that's just more of what you have already, more options. Then ship construction and salvage. I think one thing that's preventing more players from getting onto the oceans is that it's expensive to make a ship, and then when you lose a ship, you lose everything. And for me to equate that to our, land lovers as opposed to the sea ship people, that's like losing, if you've really decked out your ship and it's got all of the upgrades and all of your crew and someone sinks it, that's like losing your, tier 12 aspect and then having to start again. So that can be really devastating, and it drives people away from the system as a whole. So we're going to give people an opportunity to salvage their ship. And that will cost, obviously, but it will help new players get into the system, which I think in general for ship people will be a great thing, so that we have more players out in the ocean. And then also we will see more rivalry, and it won't be as devastating when you lose your ship. Another thing that we're adding is ship crew member loyalty, which will see sort of similar stats that we have in animal taming come to crew. So players can search for crew and upgrade their crew members and potentially specialize them the way that you want them. What we're noticing in general with UO players at this stage in the game, like UO I think is 22 years old now, is that there's a lot of min-maxers or gamers in general that are obsessed with the statistical aspect of gameplay, and Luthien loves that aspect of gameplay, and we're happy to incorporate that into the world. We see that with the player stats menu, which needs an overhaul, and that will come shortly as well. But also, we can parlay that into ship crew member loyalty, another system that just continues to expand. So hopefully we have listened to a lot of what the ship people, the sailors, have asked for, and they will be happy with those changes. I think a lot of you have been speaking directly with Luthien about that, and this system, the ship system, is really his baby from top to bottom. So please offer your feedback, and we're always keen to hear what you think about that. And again, thank you for your patience. I know this is a system that has been, a portion of Outlands that has been really widely used and loved by those who have played it, but it's had a bit of a barrier of entry. So hopefully we see more people jumping into that altogether. And now we're getting into things that are not quite finished, but the ideas are in place. Strangelands is a new semi-instance system that we will be scheduling once a week, probably on Sunday. Strangelands will be on a new map that I built, and it is basically parts of the original OSI map that I broke apart and destroyed. I had originally built it for another project that it never came to fruition. So players will be teleported into Strangelands. Everyone's called a stranger. You run around breaking crates to find items. It's basically a battle royale, except the map doesn't shrink. And you will work to specialize your character and then fight each other off. The main things are your hunger and thirst, which you will need to go and keep up. So you'll be searching for different things. Your skills and stats will increase normally, but at an accelerated rate, and you will be able to loot skill scrolls from killing animals and exploration, and then fight each other. So it should be a fun, anonymous, chaotic event to take part in. And then we have the new player experience and tutorials. So I really wanted to have a new player experience before we launched. We didn't really have time to accomplish that if we, ever wanted to launch on time. We also didn't realize how many brand new to UO players Outlands would be capturing in terms of our audience and our player base. So we're grateful that we've had a player base, a community that's willing to educate new players and to take them under their wings. And we now have a new guild, which we're really proud of and happy to support. And we are glad that the community's been a bit easier on the new players who have a new guild tag. That helps them stay and play, which I think is important. If those players are joining the Shard and then immediately being eradicated, that doesn't help our player base grow, and it doesn't help retain players. Or, you have to think of online gaming communities kind of like a pyramid scheme in that one player can then tell three players who tell three players who tell three players. So if one player has a positive experience, then the growth is really natural. And as guilds work and guilds form, and we have the new player guild that then will stem off guilds, and those players will group up and form their own groups. Anyway, the growth will happen if we support new players. So we're giving people the opportunity to choose from templates that are, real functional templates on Outlands. Things like the hamstring Halley Mage, which is something that's custom to our Shard, or, other templates that are specific to Outlands. Not necessarily, the fantasy templates that we created when we were in beta, like the, lumberjack, swordsman, or whatever it might be. Because who really wants to get lumberjacking up to 120 unless you really like chopping logs? That's not necessarily a fun activity. That's one part of it. And then we also have the new companion lodge in Shelter Island. We're going to implement companions, which will be volunteer players that will be able to introduce themselves and talk to new players and ask them if they have any questions or they need any help. And if they need any items, they'll be able to pull them from a chest on Shelter Island that other players can donate to. Also, a new player society quest system, so similar to the general societies that we have running, which reset every Friday. New players will be able to take quests that they can perform on Shelter Island, which will give them a head start into the game world. There's definitely a bit of a scope creep between new players and veterans per se. We don't necessarily recognize veterans because we think that can be a bit of a turnoff to players who see something that's never obtainable to them. If we were to reward players who created an account on launch day and you joined a year later and you never had an opportunity to have what they have, then, it's one less thing to work towards. So we like to have all rewards available for everybody. That being said, it can be a bit difficult to, activate your first aspect or head into the chain system or get really high level pets because they're expensive, or even jump into the real estate world of the game. There are housing spots available. You really have to search high and low. There are also houses that people will be willing to give you if you ask them or you make friends with them. Anyway, we're going to work on creating, an all-inclusive new player system so that if you have friends who have always been curious to try UO but they have never jumped into a shard, this will be a good opportunity for them to get on board. Also, I think the way that Classic UO is progressing is a huge selling feature for Ultima Online in general. I used to be resistant to Classic UO or high FPS because I didn't really understand. I'd never experienced it myself. And then I've been playing almost exclusively on Classic UO, and I think that Karasho and his team are doing a really amazing job there. Now I go back to Steam and I'm, what the hell? Like, I remember someone had talked to me about a flickering mouse, and I was like, yeah, no, I don't have that. That's not an issue with Steam. But now I go back to my Steam client and the mouse flickers like crazy, and I'd never even noticed it before. So Classic UO is an incredible client.
It is.
There's a lot of really amazing community contributions. I have to shout out to Roxia, who's being an incredible support in Outlands, as well as implementing features that people are asking for into the Classic UO client. We, of course, have hopes and dreams of making Classic UO the exclusive Outlands client, and we're really keen to support it fully, but we also want to make sure it's exactly where it needs to be. Recently, the Classic UO team started to incorporate the Steam scripting language into the Classic UO client. For a lot of people, including the staff, that's a huge bone of contention because the Steam scripting language is really powerful, and a lot of the things that we are resentful about in terms of gameplay on Outlands is things, functionality that Steam allows. So we have to make sure that we have the tools to mitigate that in a reasonable way. A lot of people have said, like, we'll just hack it, we'll use our client, it's open source, we can do what we want, but our secret weapon is Jaden, who happens to, do all this sort of thing for a living, and we'll have our own encryption and our own fork of the client that we control fully. And this will ultimately allow us to have more control over everything in terms of even everything down to the scripting language and art mods and what clients are connecting, what assistants people are using, and what other, advantageous programs they're connecting with. So that for us is, our ultimate goal. I remember before we launched, there was a player and he asked, like, why aren't you waiting until Orion's finished to launch the shard? And that was a good question because Orion was amazing at that point and it was the direction that we were going. But Classic UO came along and it's really been the future for us. So a few other things that I'll just touch on really briefly before we wrap this up. I think that Expo is going to do a raffle in chat as well as in game, and I'll let him handle that when I'm finished blabbing on and on. Classic dungeons are coming. I just started working on Deceit last night. It was kind of shocking to go back to the old map and see how shitty it looked. But I think that'll be fun. Classic dungeons are going to be a replica of classic OSI style as much as possible in terms of spawn and dungeon layout. We are going to place a portal on the map that will teleport people to the classic dungeon. It will only be open for a short amount of time, like a week at a time. The dungeon will allow mounts. You'll be able to recall and gate travel, and we'll probably also throw a champ spawn in there. So it'll really be like a classic gaming experience that you remember. And we're going to probably start with Deceit and then go on to Shame, and then we'll see what happens next. But I want to have 3 of those dungeons ready to roll before we introduce that system. But I think that's something that people will enjoy. It might also be a bit of a wake-up call, so you can see exactly how, not to toot my own horn, but how beautiful the Outlands dungeons are in comparison to the original OSI dungeons. Even Deceit is like the most boring dungeon. It's probably the most interesting of all of them. We're looking at boss summoning, obviously, which I talked about earlier. Omniboss overhaul in general, just making that more engaging, more lucrative, and more fun. Trying to fix sort of where that system misses the marks. I don't know exactly what that will entail yet, but it's in the works. And then regional bounty contracts, which is another map project that I'm working on, I think will fill a really nice niche between the players who don't take part in boss content and the players that do. This will be a middle overland zone. Basically, you'll receive your bounty contract. There will be set regions around the world. Right now I'm aiming for 8. Those regions will be buffed while you have your contract active. You have to reach your individual quota of killing, the monsters on your list. And then once you finish your contract, you'll summon a regional boss, basically, and then get that loot or whatever, other unique information is there. And then lastly, the player stats profile overhaul. Excuse me. Right now, aspect doesn't factor into that, and the mastery chain doesn't factor into that. So people are seeing kind of inaccurate information, and that's confusing them if they're really digging into the stat side of things. So player stats is something that Luthien has been working for looking to revamp as quickly as possible. It's definitely on the list. Anyway, that's my segment. Thank you very much to everybody that's played with us for a year. We're looking forward to another year. There will be a Halloween event or Halloween events ongoing, and also we'll be doing something for the anniversary. I'm not sure exactly how big or bold that will be, but there will definitely be something. So stay tuned for that, and I'm going to let Expo take it from here.
All right, yeah. Did I remove? No. Yeah. Thank you. Let me see. I'm gonna do the Streamlabs one first. This is gonna be for a random gold chain, so I'm gonna close entries now. Boop. And let's. Hey, Sir Bart! Congratulations, Sir Bart! Alright. That's pretty awesome. Okay, and so Bart won that. Complete this. And then I'm gonna go over here, and now everybody that's in game, let's see. Hello there, folks. So I'm gonna ask a question in game. First person to answer correctly wins another gold chain, actually. Gold chain link, sorry, gold chain link. Chain link. So, the question is kind of easy, but also kind of hard, because even I kind of forgot at the moment. I'm actually going to have to go and check real quick again. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So, I'm going to type it up right now in game. All right, so Wizard's Crux actually got that one first. Boom. Awesome. Well, there you go. So Bart and Wizard's Crux, I will get to you guys. And let's see. So thank you everybody for joining in on the Dev Debrief. You know, we enjoy doing this, so we hope you guys enjoy playing. Is there anybody? Let's see who I can raid right now. Boom, boom. Oh wait, let's see. I didn't even give. Yeah, I did do the question already, folks. I did it in game. Let's see. Who am I raiding? Oh, I guess I'm raiding a chronic pothead. Go figure. All right then. Well, everybody, have a great one and enjoy. Let's see if I get it. Yep, there it goes. Cool. Let's go raid a chronic pothead. Sir Bart and other guy, I'll be right with you. Have a good one.